Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Monday Follies here on Deadline Detroit. I am Craig Fahle, your host for today. I will attempt to be funny, but we'll see if I fail on that regard, which I frequently do. But as we do every week for the Follies, we have guests, and my guests today include Joel Sklar, a civil rights attorney who is making his first appearance on the Follies.
That is
Thank
true.
you very much for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Very
Good
excited
friend
to
of
be
Deadline
here.
Detroit. Thanks for being here. And also Spencer Hayes is back. You saw him probably about a month and a half ago or so, maybe a little more, on the
like
Follies.
yesterday.
It seems like yesterday. He's a senior publicist for C&B Scene, also the managing partner and co-founder of Apropos Music. And coming up Thursday night, Apropos is going to be over at the Foundation.
Yep, he's going to be playing at the Apparatus Room, which is located in the lobby of the Detroit Foundation Hotel over there on Larned, across from Kobo, or whatever we're calling it these days, or soon to be. And they do a Foundation After Dark series every Thursday night. They have live music, art, photo exhibits, any
And
number
lots of
things.
very cool people that show up, too. So
It's a great place to network, movers and shakers, and the way things are these days, random huge people will just kind of show up, and it's a really great chance to see artists, local artists from the city, and it does focus on artists of color, which is I think a very important thing. It's something that I definitely in our business try to focus on promoting those issues, because as Twitter Detroit account learned over the weekend, that in a city that is the largest majority black city, I believe upward of 80%, when you take a photo of, and I say this, of course, with three white men speaking, but in an office of Twitter Detroit, and they took a picture over the weekend because Jack was touring, kind of doing his mea culpa, Mark Zuckerberg style. Look, I'm so in touch with the people tour. They took a photo of Twitter Detroit, and it was like 9 white people.
I saw
and it's
that.
like, great. And so people who public relations services, C&B Scene, hi, thank you. We are available, because that's pretty obvious to anyone that's like caring about anything relating to optics.
yeah, well, and we've learned a lot of lessons about optics in Detroit over the last few months, whether it's wraps that you're putting in buildings, on the front of buildings, and you're getting ready to redevelop them, showing nothing but white people, So people should figure this stuff out.
Yeah,
appearances matter. Well, why don't we start with appearances matter? We'll get to President Trump in a minute, because there's a lot to get to. But the stuff that was all over the news this morning was Joe Biden. Joe Biden giving out a serious creepy old man vibe. We've seen the videos of Joe Biden for a long time. Crazy Uncle Joe. I think if you look that up anywhere on social media, you see a bunch of videos with him like massaging somebody's shoulders or giving somebody a hug or a kiss on the head or something like that. And Joel, as the two old guys here, this stuff you can't get away with this stuff anymore. You can't do that stuff anymore.
You can't. And even a guy who does civil rights, I do a lot of sexual harassment cases, and even if the intentionality that Joe has is completely innocent, we now live in a world of boundaries and limitations where you just can't do things that you used to be able to do, right? You used to be able to give a hug, to say whatever words you would use.
Handshakes are very, very valuable.
Handshakes are valuable, and you don't have to pull people into you. You can just have a nice, firm handshake.
Well, and you can actually, show that you are sympathizing with somebody or empathy for somebody with a good handshake.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can always do the double handshake, something like
handshake,
that.
look in the eyes.
That's exactly it.
Perfectly appropriate.
Even a bro hug, I suppose.
Hey, if it's a bro and the hugging is consensual, I would agree with that. Yes.
But the woman who has basically accused him of this and just said, hey, look, I didn't think that he had any sort of weird intentions, but I just felt violated. He was in my personal space. And things, Spencer, have changed quite a bit. And so a guy like Joe Biden, who is not a young dude, he's well into his 70s at this point, would be the oldest president ever elected if he decides to run here. I mean, I'm sorry, but...
Well, I think a lot of people are kind of looking at it retroactively, and that seems to be a narrative that I hear often, like, oh, are we just going to dig through everyone's pit? And the point is that it's always...
everybody that runs.
It's always been wrong. It's just now we're holding people accountable. It's like we should always have been giving opportunity to everyone. It's just now we seem to actually care about it and voices are being equally represented. So when women are like, hey, this is terrible, we actually listen instead of dismissing it offhand. And so I can understand on one hand how it's not like it can be problematic to go through history and hold people to the current standards because those weren't the standards. But especially in Joe Biden's case, there are things that just are like aggressively across the line. And I'm sorry, like, I've never massaged someone in public ever. Like, so when people say things like, well, what, we can't even do this or that anymore. It's like,
the answer is no.
You shouldn't have ever been able to. Like, it was always bad, and it's weird. And guess what? Women don't like it.
Yeah,
but that's going to be, it's interesting you say that because my dad is 94, and he loves Joe Biden because, well, he's a young upstart apparently. So, but my father adores him, and I think that the time.
Kid? He calls him that kid.
Oh my God!
Kid from
he's going to
Delaware.
make something of himself if he just sticks with it. But as I see it, this is a generational issue, and the way we look at it, the way that certainly Joe Biden looks at it is generationally. I was doing everything everybody else was doing. It seemed to be okay, and time we've evolved, right? As a society, as individuals, as a community, we have evolved beyond that.
But he did respond. He did respond and said, "Hey, look, you know what? I've done these things. I didn't have any ill intent, but now it's time for me to listen and learn." What'd you think about the response? As long as he doesn't do it again. But like I said, I used to watch, there's certain older people that I know that you watch them, like if we're at a diner or something, and the way that they're kibitzing with the waitress and stuff like this is not something I would ever do. I mean, you can get away with certain things when you're old, but not when you're a politician.
Do you want to know my real problem with this is that he's not even running for president
Yes, he is.
yet.
Yeah,
but he hasn't officially, and Howard Schultz hasn't officially declared. And so I think like the two of the people who've received the most media coverage so far are two old guys that should not be the president. And they've just been getting an inordinate amount of coverage. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren is like handing out pamphlets of policy every day, and she can't get anything because of the Native American.
Well, that was
stupid.
But that's her own creation.
But is that worse than
as well?
I mean, here's the thing though about this that's really. Oh, I'm sorry, Joel. I cut you off.
Go.
No, I mean, I'm watching this sort of the righteous indignation coming from the Republicans on this. They see a threat. They know who's a potential threat in this upcoming election. Joe Biden has been polling well against President Trump, and they're saying, "Look at this." And opposition Democrats are the ones that are actually digging into this as well. But let's be honest here.
That's the pot
They
killing.
don't have
Right.
a lot to talk about here on this one because it's one thing to sit there and give somebody a massage and maybe a kiss on the forehead. It's another to brag about actually grabbing women by their nether regions.
Yes.
And because
or walk
they'll
in
let
the
you do it.
dressing room of a teenage beauty pageant.
I mean, so
or
spare
say
me
you
the
want to have sex
indignation
with
here.
your daughter.
The hypocrisy, is in everything. I mean, the hypocrisy here is absurd. The question becomes whether or not is Joe Biden going to be appropriate? Is he electable? Is he going to be able to overcome his own history? And his history goes back pretty deep. Anita Hill. I mean, he's got a lot of things to answer that are really quite substantive. Making people uncomfortable, being too close to them, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Anita Hill.
But I remember, and I was just out of law school a couple years. I remember the Anita Hill hearings, and that he was super aggressive. He's got to overcome those types of things.
He had the pitchfork in hand, leading the townspeople, and I mean, not even that. Like he was leading on tough on crime. We need to like block people.
That's
nothing about his record holds up to today. And did we all forget that like he ran for president numerous times and was never taken seriously, but he got an Obama cosign, and now all of a sudden he's like some political force. I mean, Joe Biden, well, he hasn't done nothing, but he
was the vice president of the United States for 8 years.
He should not be the president for the Democratic Party of today.
I agree with you.
Bottom line.
He to me is establishment, and I think if anything that Trump, if we can learn something from Trump, it's that establishment doesn't fly anymore. That people are ready for something new and different and change.
I don't know. You don't know if they might be willing to actually sort of do a bit of a U-turn on what they did last time?
Oh, I think as far as the sense of who do we elect, this guy is different. In my mind, he's worse than ever. Listen, I'm a liberal bleeding heart, but he's far worse than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah.
But I do think I haven't even heard everything yet. I'm getting the Mueller report. We'll talk about that too.
Okay, let's get to that because we definitely need to talk about that.
Is everybody saying it? Because I'm
bars summary of the Mueller report. I was gonna say,
for all intents and purposes, President Trump had a pretty good week last week, at least for about a day. About a day after the Barr letter came out. I wouldn't even call it a memo because it's not a memo. It's basically a 4-page letter suggesting that, well, he's not committing any crimes, so there's no crimes that we think we can charge him with.
Happened, but
and he was not exonerated when it comes to obstruction of justice, but
is that really a big deal?
Mueller punted it to us, and so we're deciding this isn't going to happen. So of course, Trump basically comes out, says it's total vindication, complete vindication, which the letter from his own attorney general states it is not.
He would never mislead.
But of course not.
Not this guy.
But at the same time, he then, the very next day, decides that he wants to touch that third rail again and go after health care and sit there and say we need to throw out Obamacare altogether, and basically challenging his own party to come up with a plan, something they have been completely incapable of doing over the past 8 years. Come up with some sort of an alternative to Obamacare. They have not been able to do it. They don't have a plan now.
They're not going to have
Why
one.
does Donald Trump insist on destroying his own momentum? Because he had a lot of it until he started talking about health care.
Do you think he's destroying it? I don't think he is. I think he's distracting from really looking at them. Nobody has seen the Mueller report.
Well,
we're commenting on a movie we have never
This
seen.
is not going away anytime soon.
No, but
They said mid-April, I think. I will say
It is April 1st, so we're talking
from,
a couple
2
of
weeks.
2 weeks where this is going to be front and center.
Right.
From a PR perspective, I can somewhat respect how they had Barr come out and kind of muddy the waters.
Just a tad.
He's also speaking to a group of people that genuinely don't really care that much, regardless of anything that he does. It's the shoot him on Fifth Avenue crowd. That base, that 30% has been as hardcore as anyone, and they know that they're going to put this out. The media, which if there was ever something that was going to kind of undercut the liberal media narrative, this should be the Exhibit A. Because an attorney general who wrote a 19-page unsolicited memo applying for the job, essentially, looked at a, from all accounts, 300 to 1,000-page document with a 4-page assessment that included, I believe, a sentence or two of actual quotes from the report, and somehow we're supposed to just take that as word. And the media,
Right,
the
and
Washington
move on.
Post,
It's
New York
crazy.
Times, both without any caveat saying that, Mueller says this, and it's like we don't know
I
that, and
agree.
it's just
it drives me crazy.
It's how many people in the mainstream media, which is theoretically just behind, it's like basically an arm of the Democratic Party if you listen to the right, they're just eating it up by a guy that they've all lied about Russia. We don't know any of the context. And here's the other thing. We built Robert Mueller up as this paragon of justice. He was going to ride in on a unicorn and save us. He's a lifelong Republican who works in a establishment law enforcement agency.
Well,
there's no reason to believe that he was going to err on the side.
I'd like to think that he erred on the side of honesty.
Right,
and
of
this is what I
integrity.
found.
We don't know how he did,
we
but
will
he
find
punted.
out.
He punted.
But
at the very
you
least,
sit there and say the newspapers did all this kind of stuff. Yeah, they did put out the stories suggesting that the Barr report said this, but if you look at how many pre-orders there are for the full Mueller report on Amazon and all, everybody's going to be putting this out in different ways. This is not going to be something that people don't read. This will be very, very
correct.
read.
And if you look at historically what Trump has said, when he has denied liability, denied responsibility, have turned out to be not true typically. So my guess is the statements that he said on complete exoneration, there's not even smoke here, let alone fire, is an absurdity. And when we see the Mueller report, we're going to see there are a whole bunch of facts that need exploration. I think Mueller, again, I think he has integrity. I think he was brought in to do his job. I think he limited himself to doing the job. He didn't overstep his bounds. He's leaving it to Congress to say, listen, I'm going to give you whatever I got. This is really your job.
Which was fine. He's living in a Joe Biden 1990s world where I will do this and they will
90s, so long ago.
I will let the Congress handle it and they will do the right thing because these are the elected representatives of the people and they have our best interest. And they're not gonna.
But he's not going to indict, right? His position was, I'm not going to indict, and if I'm not going to indict, who is?
It's up to Congress.
Well, speaking of indictments,
maybe the Southern District in New York.
This is an important point because This tells us a lot about President Trump. When he says total vindication, he's only talking about his own skin. He's only worried about saving his own skin.
But even he's not totally
Nobody else is,
vindicated at
because
this
there's
point.
a whole bunch of people that actually have been impacted by this investigation. 30-plus indictments. And if you think about this, if Mueller was to have released this all and said, oh, by the way, here's 34 indictments coming out of my investigation, they don't include President Trump, but they do include a whole bunch of people around him. If it was all at one time, this would be the bombshell
absolutely.
of the
That was
of
my.
American
I've
history.
been thinking that for a very long time.
The slow drip sort of
like,
numbed us to this stuff.
And also the fact that a lot of the crimes were committed openly in public. If we had found things in an email that he said on NBC News saying, I fired James Comey because I wanted to end the Rust investigation, I think that it would seem a lot more nefarious. But because he said it in his stream of conscience, nonsense speak, he doesn't think about anything he's saying. And so he just says it. And I agree. Like, Rick Gates is the former deputy campaign manager.
He didn't work for me very
conspiracy
long.
against, like Michael
He was a
Flynn, national
coffee boy.
security advisor, one count of wine, George Papadopoulos,
Papadopoulos, also a coffee boy.
Michael Cohen,
Coffee. He got me coffee.
And bad legal advice.
Paul,
That's right.
and then Paul Mann, like the idea that
More of a
any
fashion
other
consultant.
president could have their campaign manager going to prison,
Yeah. Well,
and that would be a win. Like, that's the other thing, is that it was presented as a win, like, yeah, in the same way that, like, it was a win when Snoop Dogg didn't go to jail for murder for life. Like, the idea
well, now
that
he knows the Joker's wild. I mean,
the
come
idea
on.
that the bar is so low that, like, this is now going to be, like, a campaign issue that, hey, I didn't do as many terrible things as
I've been accused.
people
Speaking
think.
of not doing terrible
That's
things,
a
and I
win?
got to stay on this for just a second because there are a couple of different things that happened in the past week that the president tried to take credit for. His budget proposal included funding cuts for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which is a massive project. $300 million was budgeted for it, and it's been making great strides since it was implemented a decade ago. This was an Obama-era program which attempted to restore wetlands, basically clean up pollution in the lakes, and basically restore the Great Lakes to health. It's a good program. Trump's budget initially, his first budget, zeroed it out. Then he tried to cut it by 90% the last 2 years. So he comes to Grand Rapids for his first post-vindication rally, as we'll call it, and says, oh, for the first time, I'm going to get you this money, which, one, is just not true at all. That money's been there all along. All you did was change your mind on whether or not you wanted to cut it by 90%. Same goes with the Special Olympics. Not a huge amount of money, $18 million, I believe, from the federal government going to support the Special Olympics and their mission. Betsy DeVos gets beat up for it for a couple of days. Then she tweets out, well, I'm glad the president agreed with me and restored funding to this. And then the president said, nope, I overrode my people, meaning Betsy DeVos, completely throws her under the bus on this kind of thing. I love how the guy tries to take credit for basically putting money back in the budget that he tried to cut out to begin with.
That's
I don't,
pathology.
That's a
He
long
said-
setup
he
for
said
this
he's
vanity
going-
project here.
Like, did we get it in writing? He flippantly said at a rally, like, yeah, I'm going to restore that. But, I mean, it's not like he hasn't said that he was going to do things and then
Well, Congress is in charge of that budget. I mean, they're the ones that are going to make the decision, and they already said they weren't going to cut it. But
I need
your
pen on
budget
paper,
speaks
man.
volumes.
I need
Go
pen
ahead, Joel.
on
Yeah,
paper.
my only thought is that this is just the pathology of Donald Trump. You know, he says things that are expedient and that are pleasing to the ear, but have no basis in fact. You know, and this is what he does. That there is some genius about it. I mean, there is, because so many people follow him so ardently and so religiously, and I mean that in the best use of the term religious, they actually, you know, they believe what he says simply because he says it. It goes all the whole thing, that story. I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. That's right. You can do illegal acts in plain sight. That's what we're saying, or acts that are questionable in plain sight and not be accountable for them. And that is maddening, especially to me. I mean, I'm a rule of law type of guy. I do civil rights.
Probably.
And if I heard the defense lawyer tell me, well, here's what Joel, I'm not going to show you this document. Here's what it says. You got to be kidding me. I mean, okay, that's fine. We're done.
But what if they're a known liar?
Well, but that's my point. Even if they're known to be the most honest defense counsel in the world, I want to see for myself, what does that document say? And that's why it all goes back to me again. This Mueller report. It's apparently a long movie, well directed, that nobody has seen, and people are giving their opinions on it when I haven't seen it. You haven't seen it. It drives me. I want to see it, and then I want to talk.
All right. Well, let's move on here because we could talk about that for a long time.
The Special Olympics thing.
Go ahead.
I mean, $18 million is absolutely nothing. And again, from the gross PR perspective, if I was representing any major athlete, LeBron James, I'd be like, bro, write a $20 million check right now, and you will be. You're not doing anything else. But. It's just one of the most disgusting. There's a lot of cynicism.
But isn't that making the point of Betsy DeVos that that's just something that the philanthropic sector should be taking care of? That's the point she was trying to make.
Well, can't we make that deal first?
Yeah,
like maybe
I would agree.
align a philanthropic endeavor to get that in place before
optics.
You then.
We're back to optics. It looks
just
bad.
Punching
it looks
down.
really,
To
really
me,
bad.
nothing
Shouldn't
hurts
government
me more
be a
than
little bit philanthropic?
I think so.
I mean, isn't that part of what government's function is to be?
Yeah.
Is to be just that?
Well, and do a lot of the things that the private sector doesn't want to do because it doesn't make them money.
It's not profitable.
Exactly.
Correct. And
I'm sure there's plenty of business people who would fund our military.
for a proper return. I mean,
Right?
that's
So,
and they
like,
do.
There's a bunch of private citizens trying to fund the wall right now.
Let's cut that, and they can handle the military. Because, I mean, it's just there's so many things, and you're always going to have different priorities. But just how much more can you punch down than to take away from the Special Olympics? Like,
You
it is
can't.
like the one special thing we do for a certain group of people. And to just and she is just so callous about it.
And it has such importance for people's lives, parents, families, the individuals themselves. I mean, these things are really quite meaningful. And to be so cavalier in getting rid of them, it reflects the people that we're talking about, that callousness.
Well, I should remind folks, my guests, once again, Spencer Hayes is with me, as is Joel Sklar. We'll move on because I do believe we've already used up a whole bunch of our time here. I want to get to a couple of other stories. You were talking optics earlier on, and in Toledo, it's Ohio Test Day the other day, and I don't know if anybody saw this video, but there was a sort of closed circuit video that the anchors of Toledo Channel 11, I believe, did, which is one of the news stations. It's one of the TV stations in Toledo, where they made a message specifically for the students who were in testing week. So it's standardized testing week in Ohio. And in attempting to sort of relate to the high school kids, these anchors and the weatherman and the sportscaster all sort of spoke in slang terms, like saying things like on fleek and other things that I'm not even going to attempt because this is not my language.
And however you're picturing in your head, it's 20 times worse.
Yeah, imagine me
so
using
terrible.
whatever sort of hip hop slang. Maybe in this week, maybe it's old too. I don't even know. Some of that stuff could be passé already. But imagine me doing that. It wouldn't work. It would be bad. It would be bad. I'm not going to attempt this. So imagine that, and then make it even more awkward. It was awful.
It's like borderline war crime. Like the UN should get involved. It is the most at Guantanamo Bay, they will just have that on repeat because it is the delivery. They deliver it with so much earnestness, and
it was pretty bad.
I like my father. He cannot watch shows or movies where people are embarrassing themselves, and I just imagine that. Like, that's the literal embodiment of hell for him, that video.
I wonder what the meeting was like, the production meeting for that segment.
Whose idea?
Knocked it out of the park.
Right.
I would have.
This is a winner.
They're going to love this.
I've been in a lot of production meetings when it came to things. I've used a teleprompter on very, very few occasions in my career, like maybe 2 or 3 total in my entire career if I worked off a teleprompter. And if somebody said, here's the script you need to read, oh, and by the way, it's going to include a bunch of slang terms that you're going to look ridiculous saying, I would think, nope, we're not doing that.
Were there any costume requirements?
First of all, it's condescending to the kids.
Backwards hat, of course. Skateboard, slingshot,
that is
in
the best.
pocket.
I mean, first of all, I think it's somewhat condescending to the kids. That's a big problem.
You don't think any of them were like, oh my God, they get me.
That's right.
They love me.
Yes, a 17-year-old kid getting ready to take the ACT or whatever test they're taking, the Ohio standardized test, is going to watch that and go, You know what? I feel better about my chances now because Anchor Bob told me it was going to be okay.
I wasn't
and
comfortable.
He speaks my language. And the weather's going to be all right. Although I don't even know what they said about the weather. I didn't understand what they were trying to say. That just shows how unhip I am.
It'd be great to get kids' reactions, though.
And we've been beating
Those
up on Trump and the Republicans, rightfully so I'll throw one for them. Like Hillary Clinton,
Joe Biden too.
Hillary Clinton's campaign would have been like, "This is pandering, guys. Like, calm down."
They might have thought about it though. It's towards the end.
Like, I mean,
a little bit too late.
It was. I can't understand how groups of people. It's kind of like when you see a bad movie, and you just think there's so many checks and balances and things that had to happen. And this is.
But was there a certain amount of joy in watching it? I mean, obviously there must because we're talking about it.
Oh, it's hilarious.
But it is. It's hilarious. But it's like I think that awful movie. Like, my God, it did get worse. Yes, Jaws 3D actually got worse.
Yeah, but if you're working in
it.
Toledo, okay, you're an anchor in Toledo, right? That's not your be-all, end-all goal if you're a television anchor. Chances are you're thinking bigger market, bigger market, bigger market. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much.
Maybe Akron.
Hey, but you know what? I mean, look, that's a big part of how that works.
Yeah.
And this is out there. This is now out there. Anytime anybody Googles you, this one is going to be out there.
This is going to follow you like the plague.
It's
going to haunt you.
That's right. You're not exactly Walter Cronkite now, are you?
Oh, boy.
It's like Sam Donaldson now. I don't know if you've seen Sam Donaldson now, but it gets a little bit frightening.
Oh,
Well,
man.
there you go.
If SNL, they should have done a Walter Cronkite, just using that exact script that they used.
How
and
cool would that have been?
This is on fleet.
That's right.
He could have carried it off, though.
Well, maybe. Anyway, we'll see. I love Toledo. I wish nothing but the best for those
Tony
folks.
Pacos.
Yeah, there you go.
Wonderful.
The Mud Hens. I mean, come on.
They got a lot of good things.
All right, let's talk about a couple of other stories. We've got a few minutes left here. This is a little Fox News story that we have here. There was Katie Pavlich, who works on Fox News, sometimes appears on Fox and Friends and some other shows. They had a show where they were talking about slavery and reparations, because Fox likes to scare you about anything. So any discussion about reparations is clearly something that's going to be a problem for anybody who is white in America. They're going to take your money, give it to somebody else. They're going to be all over this for a long time, especially if any Democratic candidate mentions reparations. But during that, Katie Pavlich actually came on and said, you know what? I'm tired of this slavery discussion. The U.S. gets no credit for ending slavery.
Okay. That's like Germany gets no credit for ending the Holocaust.
You know, we ended slavery within 150 years of our founding. Well, considering the fact that slavery had been in existence for about 400 years since people first started coming to the United States, this is not something that we deserve credit for. We were the very last nations to actually abolish slavery, and we did it kicking and screaming. It took hundreds of thousands of dead in the bloodiest war in our history to actually end slavery. And we still took
fighting.
another 100 years to actually give people officially the right to actually vote without being hassled.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't understand. We're sitting there. We should get credit for ending slavery? I don't think so. I don't think that's something you ever get credit for. Righting a wrong, saying, yeah, I stopped murdering people.
No, that's absurd. I mean,
you got to forgive me now. It doesn't work that way.
Remember when I said about not holding past events to present day standard, but they were ultimately always wrong? Yeah. Well, this is that times a billion.
That's right.
What did you say? I actually wrote down two of her quotes because I read the transcript and they're the most insane things.
What
and
did
then
she
I'll
say?
let Joe. Here we go.
You rock props, Joe. I love this.
My point is that we were the country that decided to end it, and we're still dealing with the issue. But if you want to start a problem and to inflame racial tension even more, start blaming people who have nothing to do with slavery for the sin of slavery. That is not fair. That's not the American way, and we shouldn't be doing it. And then later she says, I can't even. You get it.
Yeah,
the idea that she is this is a huge W in our column. Is that
but think of the world that she lives in, though. I mean,
who started? I don't understand.
But it's a reflection.
It's a bad look.
It's a bad look, and it's a reflection of the world that she's speaking to. A little world, I think a very cloistered world that doesn't acknowledge not only the obscenity of slavery, but we continue to deal with the remnants of slavery every single day. I mean, this is something that is in our blood. It's in our DNA, and as a nation, we'll be dealing with for as long as this nation exists.
Yeah, and that's not something that should ever be forgotten.
No.
There's no credit to be given.
No, there's no credit to be given. That's an absurdity.
Doing the right thing is doing the right thing.
Right. This nation moves so slowly. But again, I've been doing civil rights for 30 years, and the nation moves slowly.
The arc of justice is long, but it bends towards justice.
It does every now and then. And sometimes I'm not sure if it's by design or by coincidence. Every now and then it does, and every now and then it takes a big jump back, and that's that. And as I see the world today, that's what I'm worried about.
Chris Rock had a really great bit that I think kind of illuminates this point, and it was mostly about the difference between income and wealth. And he was just saying, like, I'm rich, I'm not wealthy. Like, I'm at the top of my field. I've been killing it for years. I live next to a dentist. Like, that's kind of the whole idea behind white privilege, which people get so freaked out about because they fundamentally don't understand what it means. But, like, the racial wealth gap is 225 years was the most recent estimate. It would take, on a positive trajectory, for, like, a black individual or family to have the same level of wealth as just a regular white, not the richest people, just anyone. And we are so far away that to pretend that slavery was so long ago, I mean, we are not that far removed.
Institutionalized.
And it wasn't like slavery's over, we're good.
Yeah, that's right.
It was like, imagine starting at zero, go, and also we're going to hate you the whole time. Like, everyone just needs to think about how hard it's Monday. We got the whole week ahead. How hard is everyone's life? Everyone has things they're dealing with. Now imagine that, like, the majority of the population just hates you.
Well, I wouldn't say the majority.
Well,
but there are certainly some people out there. But at the same time, it's a legitimate thing. We do have to move on because we're running out of time, because otherwise we can get sidetracked on that issue for a long time.
I meant Fox News majority.
Oh, well, no. Fox News. That's a different animal. We have to go to Florida. Because Florida Man. Now, everybody's seen the Florida Man challenge that showed up in the last few weeks. Well, we've been doing Florida Man here on the Fahles for a long, long time. Because every week there's something that happens in Florida that just sort of makes you wonder what's in the water.
Yeah, what is up with that state?
Now, this one, a South Florida man was arrested on Monday. This was last Monday, after he attacked his mother for refusing to dress his mannequin. A 40-year-old man, living with his mother still, which is interesting. But he has a mannequin that he apparently likes to dress. No shots fired. Now, he beat her. He beat her with a kitchen stool, which is bad. But then, to add insult to injury, he started shoving dumplings into her mouth in an attempt to potentially
choke her, asphyxiate her by dumpling.
By shoving dumplings in her mouth.
I think I read the story like 6 times and I couldn't understand what it was, like a fever dream.
Yeah, and did he think about, like, were the dumplings, was that like a thought ahead of time? You know what I'm going to do?
And what is the mannequin?
That's it. What is the mannequin? And what is it? Yeah. Mother, dress my mannequin. I mean, this is like real sort of psycho kind of stuff here. This is Anthony Hopkins.
And did Mom really refuse, or did Mom say, I'm not going to put the scarf on today? Now, it's a little bit warm out. There's no need to accessorize.
It's spring. You don't need the scarf anymore.
Wait, what was going on with that? Yeah, that is a strange thing. My mannequin, I never dress. It just stays there. I know it's frightening you.
Well, I never have my mother dress the mannequin because her taste is just awful. It just doesn't work.
Mom, would you stay away? Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, who's ready for that dark, gritty mannequin reboot?
What we don't know is what kind of mannequin it was.
Well, a
womanikin or a mannequin.
It felt like they were testing an AI program to write news articles, because it just was so. What is a mannequin? Why do you dress?
They frighten me.
Why are the stakes?
Mannequins have always frightened me. They have that strange hand thing, and I tell you, their gaze never changes.
And then the dumplings was like a late plot.
The dumplings are the dumplings in the fridge.
I
mean,
that's
did
right.
you
What
prepare
do I have here
a few
that's going
hours
to take
before
care of
him?
this woman?
Are they chicken?
Are there like just aggressive dumplings that he has in case?
Correct.
Like,
just in case. When I beat my mom with the stool, the dumplings dumplings are going to follow? How does that?
Were they sweet or savory? We don't know.
Maybe
I'm
they
going
were,
with savory dumplings.
the plant-based diets are in. Maybe it was
Maybe
like a
veggie.
spring-
Maybe he
Well,
was. Yeah.
let's wrap up with a good story here, gentlemen, because this one
That's
was
not the good story.
No,
Okay.
that's a funny story, in a tragic comic
I
sort of way.
I guess
In
technically,
fact, you can
People
see
like
the
to
tears.
suggest-
Yeah.
makes me wonder a
technically
little
an
bit.
elderly woman was physically assaulted.
You think that dude
so
could pass a background check? I hope not.
In Florida, yeah. He's
You could get Senate confirmation.
going to get an
though.
award.
Now,
Best
okay.
use of stool.
Here's a great story that come out of Nebraska, which has not had a lot of great news lately. I mean, they've had all this awful flooding that's been going on up there. But these two guys were out there cleaning up a bunch of fields, and they were helping everybody. Everybody got together and really sort of helped clean up after these floods. And these guys were out in the middle of this field somewhere, and they stumble upon a refrigerator that had floated away, like a mini fridge. And the thing was completely stocked with ice cold beer. So it had kept the beer cold this whole time. These guys basically find like 5 cases of beer in there, and they like check out what we found in the middle of nowhere.
Again, the existence of God confirmed.
Well, exactly. They called it. They went on
photo was
social
great.
media, but here's the best part. They went on social media. They called it the Magic Fridge. Now, here's the problem. It was filled with Busch Light and Bud Light.
I was gonna bring
okay,
that
not
up.
from God.
Huge
But-
caveat.
Well, maybe one of the angels. You never
When was
know.
the last time you had a Busch Light?
I can't tell you. I haven't had anything in a long time.
Again, Guantanamo Bay.
College.
Busch Light. Well, it could have been worse. It could have been something like Natty or.
I know. That's about it, though. I mean,
That's right. But the thing is, they found it, and the thing was intact. It had not opened up. It floated through the flood, and the guys posted on social media, and somebody recognized his refrigerator. It's like, hey, that's my fridge. And the guys were cool enough. They returned it to him, minus
some
a few
beers.
That's right.
Those are great.
Joel, as a lawyer, what's the legal onus for that?
Hey,
Like, do I have to
all I
30
know is I
days?
watched the Three Stooges a lot, and possession was 9/10 of the law. So I'm going to go with the Three Stooges analysis. You find the fridge with the beer, it's yours.
I kind of like
Yeah.
it.
I was just looking for
And Mo
any-
loved a good beer.
And
Frothy.
that's on record, right? I'm just looking for any justification that will allow me to keep it. I don't know. What would you do?
I don't know. They returned it to the guy, which I
That's
thought was
a
the
great
cool
guy,
thing to do.
right.
And they, like I said, we're going to return. They told them, well, we're going to return it to you minus a few
fridge
beers.
is
So they had a
lot
couple
more.
beers each.
I mean,
and-
what's the retail value on a couple Busch Lights? Like -$7.
Nothing, but the guy's probably. What do you think was the first thing he went looking for when he went back into that house? Where's the fridge? No, the fridge is gone, not the fridge.
And how could only that be gone?
Well, a lot of his other stuff was gone
Okay,
too, but
all
they
right.
just found that.
Well, they
so.
found like an entire like a rec set. Man, there's a TV, and everything's working beautifully. That would be a nice find.
But it was actually pretty far away from the house too. That was the great thing. It was not that close. It was not like it was just in the field nearby. It went floating for quite a ways.
It took a trip.
Yes, it absolutely
Viking cruise
did.
line.
So yeah, and here's the great thing. Here's how he recognized his fridge from the scorch marks from an old cabin fire and the ratio of Bud to Busch beers inside. So
How many guns does he own? I'm just curious.
So you
to
must
know
do
as
like
well.
some sort of thing. Well, I drink the Busch Lights, and then when I treat myself, I get the Bud Light. Is
Then
that,
it
is that
gets
the
a
way
little
that
bit
works?
crazy.
So he's like, there's got to be 2-to-1 ratio of Busch Light to Bud Light in the fridge.
I saw the mannequin head in the freezer was a huge tell for me.
There you go.
But the subtle differences in taste. Yeah, okay.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it very much. Joel, thank you very
Oh, it was
much
a pleasure,
for being
please.
here. And you'll be back, obviously.
I hope so.
We
I
always
have a
like
great
civil
time with
rights
you
attorneys
guys.
on the show. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. It's not a small deal. Spencer, we'll see you Thursday night
Oh yeah,
over at Apparatus.
yeah.
Should be a lot of fun.
About 8 o'clock, and there's a lovely young woman coming in. She's based in Montreal, but she is from Algeria, and she was actually a refugee. And her name is Mary M. I don't want to mispronounce it, so
Okay.
But if you go to veryapropos.com, all the details are there. And
Very good.
It's a great night, and it's a cool way to get in the apparatus room. You don't have to drop a
that's
huge
right.
amount of money. You
Very
can get
true.
in free, have a good drinks, check out the scenery.
And meet some cool people.
Have a good
well,
time.
gentlemen,
Exactly.
thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Michael Lucido, thank you very much as well for engineering the broadcast today. This has been the Monday Follies on Deadline Detroit. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you with the full regular Craig Folly Show podcast tomorrow. And we'll be back next week with more fun. Thanks.